Amazon purchased MGM for $8.5 billion, but they did not have creative control of James Bond itself until now, after spending an extra $1 billion. And nobody expected this because Barbara Broccoli was so attached to this franchise and seemingly behind the scenes so dedicated to maintaining creative control and making sure that they weren't going to hijack this character. But I guess enough struggle and enough money was going to make her relent, and she has now stepped back.
Do you remember
Amazon has exclusive control over this character now.
Do you remember the part of they talked during an interview where they did a meeting with with Amazon executives in Barbara Broccoli, and one of the Amazon executives says, "I don't think James Bond is a hero."
Yeah, we talked about that not even that long ago. It was a report about what was going on behind the scenes as Amazon was in a struggle for writing a script that essentially was satisfactory to Barbara Broccoli, and she did not like what they had in mind.
I'm wondering if they were just like, let's just make her life hell until she sells.
I mean, I believe it.
There's probably a memo at Amazon HQ. It says, create hell till sell. Create hell till she sells for Barbara Broccoli and
hell till
Michael
she sells.
G.
And
Wilson.
she ended up selling.
And she sold.
Well, she is still a co-owner, but does not have creative license on anything they do with James Bond going forward.
That was reported by Deadline that Michael G. Wilson and Barbara Broccoli ceded their creative control, and they shelled out an astonishing $1 billion, all so that Jeff Bezos can then tweet to the public, who do you think should play James Bond? We'll get into that, but the biggest concern you should have for this, guys, right now is that they're gonna cinematic universe all this shit. And that's the last thing we want, because you know what's gonna happen here, right? So we have this discussion pretty regularly where I'm like, look, there's a balance between the creatives and the people in charge, right? I get annoyed when the creatives get mad at the executives because they want basically to be the pores who say, give me all the money and give me all the control. Well, that's not feasible. Most of these companies have larger ideas for what they want to do with their IP, which is why barely anything gets through anymore unless it's connected to some larger piece of intellectual property. But the problem is that James Bond was a movie event every couple of years. It was not designed to be content. It was not, which is why I had a problem when the first thing they announced when Amazon purchased it was a reality TV show. And I was like, what the hell are you doing? But the point is
competition for who can use the gadgets.
I don't want to see a Moneypenny spinoff. I don't want to see a Q spinoff. I don't want to see a prequel and how M got to be M. I don't want to see any of that. I want to see James Bond drinking martinis, using women, and then saving the day. Say it with me. Drink martinis, use women, save the day. They can do this.
Drinking martinis, using women, saving the day.
They can do this. You don't need to do the spin-offs. You can do a movie every couple of years and still make it worth your while. And the best way you can do that is, first of all, it could give you more legitimacy if you actually release these in theaters. I think that's the biggest concern here, is that Amazon's going to want to make these Amazon exclusives, which I don't think that's what they'll do. It's not just Amazon Studios, it's Amazon MGM. But they can release these movies in theaters every couple of years. If you get the casting right and you don't screw this up, you can make a lot of money at the box office, and then you get your 90-day window at the theaters, and then it goes to Amazon for pay VOD, and then eventually to Amazon as an exclusive Amazon release on your streaming service. You can make money with James Bond. You can.
But if they are smart about it, right? And as soon as Jeff Bezos posted this on X, asking the people who they want to play the next James Bond, his comments got flooded with Henry Cavill. Yeah. Everyone was suggesting Henry Cavill. And actually, the director of Casino Royale addressed this before, saying that Henry Cavill was almost the runner-up to Daniel Craig, but he was too young at the time. Well, now they're saying he's too old, and just enough time has passed where it's sadly not going to work out if he wants to have a normal length run.
That was my number one critique of the casting idea of Idris Elba, more than anything, more even than just the fact that he is not a white British person, but a black British person, was that he was too old. I think Idris Elba would make a fantastic Bond villain. He's kind of got his own thing going with the Luther series, which they're trying to turn into like a spy franchise. It was like a psychological crime thriller with a humanist element when it was a TV show, but then they made Luther, what was it, like Fallen Sun or Rising Sun or something Sun. It was a Netflix movie, and they definitely turned it into like a spy franchise. He's got his own thing going. Idris Elba is actually probably too big of a name to be James Bond anyways. I would rather they go with somebody new. Yes, I would. I like the Henry Cavill casting idea.
It's not a coveted role like that?
No, I want it to be, I want the actor to build their name off of the, a lot of times what it is that if you have a large library of work, right? If we put Tom Hardy in there or we put Henry Cavill in there, you're going to see all their other roles as well as they try to fit into the character. I would like to see a lesser known actor build their reputation off a great run as James Bond. Yes,
Daniel Craig likes your take.
Daniel Craig was known before James Bond, but he gained infinitely more credibility after playing James Bond.
No, everyone is saying it has to be Cavill. They disagree with you, Brett. You're being contrarian. You're being wrong. That one guy who doesn't want Henry Cavill as James Bond. I honestly think if they want money, they should just go with Cavill. Like, just do it. It doesn't matter if you can't make as many movies as you normally would have planned. Just do the thing that people want you to do. Cast Henry Cavill. It's so simple. And like you said, have Henry Cavill drink martinis, use women, and save the day. It could be so successful.
There is,
and it doesn't matter. Just make like 3 movies instead of 5. Whatever. It's fine.
And my point here is I'm talking about the traditional formula, which is what they're not looking for 2 movies. They're looking for 15 years of this dude's life. And Henry Cavill is what? He's older than me.
Doesn't matter. They're trying to make money. Make 3 Henry Cavill James Bond movies and call it a day.
And remember, but here's the thing. Henry Cavill, whether we're talking about Warhammer, which is already a point of contention, not just between him and Amazon, but or it's between him and Amazon. He's also doing Highlander right now. So when does it free up his schedule for all of that stuff? If you're not careful, what's going to happen is like, well, we won't give you him as Bond, but in 5 years we'll give you him as M. You're gonna be screwed.
But
They're gonna relegate him to a side role.
If you're talking about giving the people what they want, and I assume Jeff Bezos is checking his notifications on X, it should be Cavill. It should be. It doesn't matter with all these practical concerns about how long he'll be able to play the role. Just when he gets too old, stop making the movies. It's so simple.
There's a 20 there.
Pop Culture Junkie said, I've heard that one of the final meetings between Broccoli and Amazon was virtually indistinguishable from an actually funny SNL skit, with the Amazon folks looking like clueless nitwits. Nitwits, you don't hear that
And
much.
another 20 from Uncompetitive. Says Dan Stevens, Downton Abbey, and Legion to be younger James Bond. I still like the Aaron Taylor Johnson casting idea. I do.
Look, everyone wants Henry Cavill, though. So I feel like we're overcomplicating this.
So I'm going to read
Am I wrong?
No, you're not.
We're overcomplicating it.
Look, I'm
just make a Henry Cavill James Bond trilogy.
Trilogy. Okay.
Do it.
Okay. Here's
Easy.
This one says the formula to revive classic Bond is simple. Cast Cavill. Make it a 60s or 70s period piece. That is an interesting idea of making it a period piece. Film 100% practical effects. Devote silly budget to finding and casting a completely unknown but extremely hot brown-haired actress from a European country. Allow Cavill to be a ruthless male chauvinist. Like, really let him get his Connery bag. Source the score exclusively from GoldenEye N64.
If they let Henry Cavill smack a bitch, I would be shocked.
Here's some of the other. I'm just going to read some of these other takes. Barbara Broccoli understood the character and had a fantastic instinct for casting and pushed for Daniel Craig despite a lot of resistance. Every day, Twitter is flooded with terrible casting suggestions by people who do not get it. There was a big critique of casting Daniel Craig simply because he was like a light brown hair. He was like blondish rather than dark haired. He also had a more weathered face than the likes of like a Pierce Brosnan did. This is what Daniel Craig said about this. He says, "My respect, admiration, and love for Barbara Broccoli and Michael G. Wilson remain constant and undiminished. Whatever venture Barbara goes on to do, I know they will be spectacular, and I hope I can be part of them." What's funny is there's some revisionist history, because every time after like Skyfall, they would say, like, "Are you going to do another James Bond movie?" And then Daniel Craig goes, "I would rather die than make another James Bond movie." And he would just keep coming back for more. It's like they would just back up the money truck, the Brinks money truck, to his house. So there's some revisionist history there. Joe Russo says this is the Joe Russo of Twitter, not Joe Russo of the Russo brothers. "It's kind of sad to see the last family-owned movie franchise handed over to the suits, and I'm sure Amazon MGM is salivating, but don't cinematic universe James Bond. It's one of our last great theatrical events. Don't dilute it with a plethora of streaming spinoffs." Yeah, at least in the past, when they talked about doing spinoffs, when they were going to do the Jinx spinoff from Die Another Day, that was with Halle Berry. That was at least going to be a movie spinoff and not like a television series. This is Matthew Marsden. He says, "Controversial take, the James Bond franchise was going woke. If the showrunner of Reacher was put in charge of it, made Bond a womanizing, violent, hard-drinking badass, they would save the franchise." Yes, do that with Cavill is what they're saying.
Well, here's my premonition. I think that Jeff Bezos was only asking people who should play the next Bond because he himself wants to play the next Bond.
See, but I think he wants to be
He wants to be Jeff Bond. I mean...
Bonzos.
Lauren Sanchez, I think she could really make it happen. I mean, I think that she could make a great Bond girl. And clearly Jeff Bezos has some fantasies that he wants to fulfill with this character. Yeah. I want to see it. I want to see Jeff Bezos play James Bond.
Disparu says, "Broccoli had so many awful comments about James Bond. I don't think Amazon can be worse than her. They'll just make more stuff that's awful in a shorter time." He picked up something. He says, "Bond's been evolving along with all the other men in the world," says Broccoli. "Some have just gotten there more quickly than others." And then what was the other one? The decision left about the $80 million budget, says that decision left Broccoli incensed. "One of her main goals as a steward of 007 has been to shake off some of the chauvinism that characterized Bond's appearances in the novels and early films. With Craig the lead, Bond has matured. He's not just engaged in one-night stands, though he's had his fair share of those. He fell in love with Ava Green's Vesperland." Yeah, and that was unique at the time, but hindsight being 2020. I didn't like it. I liked it.
I thought one-night stands were feminist. So I'm confused.
I don't know.
I thought that...
conflicting messages.
I thought there was something empowering about hooking up with women for one night and never speaking to them again. I thought that empowered women.
I like this one. It says it's talking about corporations buying these franchises. It says Terminator, Star Wars, Lord of the Rings, 007. Adding Terminator there is a deep cut. They're forgetting that's a Warner Brothers franchise.
Get rid of Rings of Power. Just completely give up on that one.
I do want
and use Henry Cavill for a few James Bond movies.
And I do want to point out, look, there is some. This is why I don't necessarily think it's the greatest idea for Amazon. I have a lot of faith for Amazon with their dad TV when it's franchises that don't have the cultural cachet that James Bond does. So we're talking about Jack Ryan. Look, those book series are very popular with dads and older men. It's not designed to be translated for younger audiences. It has its audience. It understands that. The same was true of The Terminal List and Bosch and Reacher. They did very, very well with those because they weren't trying to attract a younger audience or turn them into expansive franchises that went into other demographics than the dads that are over that 18 to 49 demographic. Now we can talk about Rings of Power, Citadel, or even worse, what they did with Without Remorse with Michael B. Jordan, which was awful. Their track record is good in some things, not good in others, but the cultural relevance and the longevity of James Bond makes me think that they're going to try to tinker with it and make it something that it's not.
We have a 20 from Jose Quintana. Happy Friday, Optical Overlord and Ghost Empress. Brett, I do agree with Cavill being the top choice for the new Bond. Too bad that Elba aged out. What about the new Moneypenny? Wait a minute. What about the Empress? I don't think I have what it takes to be on screen, but did Idris Elba age out or did Henry Cavill age out?
I think he's saying Idris Elba aged out.
Yeah, I disagree with that.
That Elba is aged out?
That Henry Cavill is too old to play it.
I don't think that's what he said.
But most people who object to it are saying that.
I admit that I'm kind of stuck in the idea that when you hire that actor that they're going to be on there for 5 films, but there's nothing wrong with trying to, I mean, thinking of it as a trilogy is a great way to put it, and that allows you to get away from the meandering nature of a franchise and turn it into a beginning, middle, and an end.
Right.
And that's a good idea. In that case, I would support that idea.
Jeff Bezos should listen to me.
But you're also right that it's too easy and it's too simple. And they probably
want to make everything so complicated and stupid and convoluted. Like, why? Just do the thing that people want you to do. You clearly don't care about the franchise itself. Like, it's not like it has a special place in your heart. Just do it the way that people want. Why? Why do they need to make this into rocket science?
It is not rocket science.
Just cast Cavill. It'll make so much money.
We would have to wait and see. It would be great to. I would be interested to see what their business strategy for it is going to be going forward. You know, I would be more worried that they would release it without a long theatrical window, and it would be one of those things where it's like on streaming a couple of months later. I don't think they would do that. They might do that with lesser known franchises, but it better get a full theatrical run, and they better put it into it. And if you can, get Martin Campbell to direct, because remember, Martin Campbell didn't just direct Casino Royale, launching the James Bond franchise for Daniel Craig. He also directed GoldenEye, launching the franchise for Pierce Brosnan. He knows how to launch a Bond franchise. So go ahead and do that, guys. Thanks for watching. Listen to full episodes of Pop Culture Crisis on Spotify.
Keep up with us on social media and make sure you subscribe and ring that bell so you never miss the show. Bye, guys.